Hey Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rockey here with the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate, trying to get ahead of what will be an exciting Thursday night when the NFL releases the when of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We already know the who's and the where, and I want to break down what we already know about the schedule in light of the NFL power rankings that were released by Dan Hanzus. But before we get that, as I've been asking for the last couple of episodes here, if you have any individual connection with any of the Steelers charities or foundations, please let me know. There's going to be a contact right up here in the link, so please click that and let me know the direct contact person at them. I would love to have the charities represented on the program so that they can get better awareness, but it's also good for us to know more about what these players are doing and the impact that they're having on Steelers Nation, even if we don't exactly know it. It's a win-win for everyone involved. But with that being said, today's episode is going to be about the schedule. Who are we playing and when? So let's first start with the who, because the when comes out on Thursday. Obviously, we have the three division teams at home. We have two representatives of the AFC South as we play that entire division. Jacksonville and Tennessee are the two that come here to Acusure. It's still weird saying that. But when you look at the two better ones from a division coming to your house, that's an advantage. When we look out to the West, Arizona is coming here, as are the Niners. And then in our spillover games, the Patriots are coming back here, as well as the Packers. The road schedule is the three division games, and then the other two in the South. So we're going to Houston and Indianapolis, and then we're also going to the Rams and to the Seahawks. Now, the reason I wanted to bring the power rankings into this conversation wasn't to necessarily just fight with Dan Hanzus' opinion about where these teams are ranked, although I certainly do have some thoughts that I believe he's just inaccurate on. But I want to dwell upon the teams that we're playing and kind of give some starting perspective on them. So to make the power rankings fun, I always like starting with the worst and then going up to the best. And these are the post-draft power rankings, mind you. So this is after we account for the fact that Houston took a quarterback from Ohio State, because that's never worked before. But the team that is actively trying to get the first pick in the draft, and they might have achieved it by getting Houston's pick, is the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, it's a team on our schedule. It's a team that in an ideal world, since it being at home, obviously I'd rather play them later in the year. There's a lot of that. They're from the desert. It gets cold here. But this one doesn't need a whole lot of breaking down. Kyler Murray's hurt in the beginning of the year. And by the time he comes back, the team is going to be out of it. They already want to replace him. The new GM has come out and said that. They're not going to give him an opportunity to shine in the best light. The guy doesn't really have a football heart when it all comes said and done. And we're going to be looking at a backup quarterback throwing to, granted, two good receivers. But if we play them after the trade deadline, there is no guarantee that Hopkins or Hollywood are still there. So, you can make an argument, let's play them early without Murray there. Nah, give me them late. Come up here and freeze after they've already quit. They want to get the first pick. Let's just help them give that by a late loss. And then, as I mentioned before, the second worst team in the NFL, you draft a quarterback from Ohio State. It's not going to be profitable. They're not accurate. They don't throw into tight windows. And rookies get scared. Hello, TJ Watt. Potentially a absolute sackfest game with the Houston Texans being ranked 31st overall. Again, Houston is one of those teams that we are going to. So it's a dome. And it's potentially going to be one of those games that's going to be over 50% black and gold. I've never been to Houston. I hear it's a fun city to hang out at. Depending upon what time of the year it's at, especially if it's like November, not going to be too cold down there in Texas. So in a dome might be a great one for Steelers Nation to check out. Not really seeing any competition there. The Commanders, he has at 30th, not on our schedule, so not going to dwell on them. Tampa, who is on our schedule, is 29th. or correction, we're playing the AFC South, not the NFC South. So Tampa is not on our schedule. The Indianapolis Colts are. They're at 28th. The thing with the Colts are new coach, new quarterback, good running game. So when you add those things up, the Colts have a pretty strong offensive line. When we went there last year, that game was gross. We're going to be going there again. Obviously, it'll be a very different team. I would rather play the Indianapolis Colts ideally later in the year. And there's two reasons for that. First is Gardner Minshew just flat out isn't as bad as people write him off to be. So we can play the rookie, that'd be better off for us. Secondly, we know it's going to be in Indianapolis, and it's going to be one of our December road games. I would rather it be there in a dome. Not trying to avoid the cold or anything, but the Colts clearly are not an elite team, and it can be a spot where it can be a potential. We got the Colts coming up in December, so we'll be able to make up a game on someone. Because, as we've already said, we've gone through 5 of the worst teams of football. 3 of them are on our schedule. There's going to be some games that on paper, the Steelers will be like, you better not lose that. It should be a blowout. And I would love to have those stacked into the later half of the year, the December and beyond. Just because it's always good to have some energy in your pocket moving forward. 27 on Hanzu's list is Denver. And nothing really going on there. Another Ohio State quarterback with the Bears at 26. That seems a little high, in my opinion. Carolina trades up to get the number 1 pick. They fall to 25th in his power rankings. Again, we don't play Carolina, so it's not really something I want to dwell upon. We do play the Titans, though, and they are 24th. This is one of the teams on this list that I think is drastically underrated in the Tennessee Titans. Yes, they had a down year last year, no doubt. They also didn't have a quarterback. Hey, guys, remember last year whenever Malik Willis was supposed to be the end-all, be-all of all quarterbacks, and we messed up by drafting Kenny Pickett? And I'm going to be admittedly right now, I was on the Trubisky camp and against the draft pick because my first thought was I thought Trubisky was going to be good based upon pedigree. But the other part was that I thought we had better options other than quarterback to go at in last year's draft. Now, granted, I think that Kenny was the right choice now that we've done it, looking in retrospect. Because if we would have merged the 2 quarterback classes, Kenny would have been the second best. He would have been ahead of Stroud, he would have been ahead of Will Levis, and he would have been ahead of the one from Florida. He's certainly ahead of all the other ones in his class. So we look at this in retrospect. We were all hating on the Kenny pick at the time, except the diehard Pitt fans. And now it looks like completely great selections. And I think that that's something to keep in mind. But this all was brought up because the Tennessee Titans were ranked 24th because they relied upon Malik Willis. End of discussion. So they've already come out and said that they're starting Tannehill and Will Levis is their backup without a doubt. And we know this going into the season. But Tennessee is very obvious what they're doing. They're going to try to run the ball down your face. And that's the way that they are. Their defense is better than advertised. Vrabel was one of these coaches, much like Tomlin, that makes the entire unit, whether it be offense or defense, better than the sum of its parts. So yeah, they had a major setback last year. They are not the number 24 team in the NFL. And the Tennessee Titans, when they do come into town, that's going to be, I believe, a very good game to watch. And I think it's going to be a pretty good barometer of where we think we're at, Steelers Nation. Because if I had to put the odds on it, they're finishing first or second in their division. And if we have aspirations to do that, or being in a wild card contention, Tennessee's a team that we're going to need to beat. And that's just a fact of life. So that's something to keep your eyes on. Again, Tennessee is one of these ones where, all being said, I think I'd rather play them early when I know the whole defense is healthy. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to matter that much as long as Cam Hayward's on the field. Cam Hayward is the key to stopping them. Moving onward on Hans's list, he has Atlanta at 23. Again, we don't play them. The Las Vegas Raiders are a team we play. Guys, I do another show on Local Football Flavor. It's another channel I do where I break down all the NFL. The Raiders might have had the worst offseason of the teams that are trying. And there's a lot of mistakes going on up there. And when we look at it, they don't have Waller. They don't really have a quarterback. What are they trying to do? They're trying to build a pass rush that can kind of cover. And that is a potential recipe for problems whenever you look as will Kenny be able to handle a decent pass rush? Because these guys will bring a decent pass rush. I don't think they're going to score on us just like last year. I hope that it's a much better looking game than last year. But I easily see this as being one where Kenny does his thing. Just don't make mistakes. Run the ball hard. Defense wins it for you. And quite frankly, with the exception of Tennessee, that's true for every single game I've said so far. Kenny will have to score against Tennessee. The first other divisional team on Hanzus' rating, the Browns. I mean, we've talked about Cleveland a little bit here. Cleveland, straightforward, is Watson any good or not? Obviously, we play them here and there. I just don't want to play them week one. There's just something about playing Cleveland in week one that doesn't feel like the season really has started. Like, it was so much funner playing Cincinnati last year. Like, you had to be up for that game. You knew it mattered. But Cleveland's like, all right, let's go play Cleveland. Like, I don't know. It's going to be, we're obviously playing them twice. We lost there last year on Thursday night, which we never should have done. But I'm just not really excited for the Cleveland Browns game. I'm not really excited for the team overall. It seems like it's a soap opera coming on that wants to play football on both sides of the ball. With what Garrett did to Rudolph and with what Watson did off the field, I don't really get excited when we talk about the Cleveland Browns. I do chalk it off as it should be 2 wins, despite the fact that they had the best coach of my lifetime on their sideline, and they're stupid and they're probably going to fire him this year. So that's the drama that will be the Cleveland Browns. A team that we do play this year is up next again, the LA Rams. And by the way, guys, we've gone through 32 teams. We've played most of these guys this year. That's how you make a soft schedule. LA Rams, we're going to LA. Again, I expect that to be a predominant Steelers presence in the house. This is a team that basically admitted they are trying to get the first round pick. If he sits everyone down again like last year, particularly on defense, I don't really see a way that they can stop us. If Aaron Donald is still on this roster when we play them, I do expect he will get traded. I don't see this as even being really a matchup. I see this as being one of the games that they bury at Fox at 4 o'clock whenever Kansas City's playing. There's no real going to be a challenge in this one, and that is taking off my complete homer vision. They can't stop the run. Their number 2 corner is non-existent. By the way, they did trade Ramsey away. So when we look at the Rams, I don't see them having a punch once you recognize the fact that Peterson is going to be on Cooper Kupp. They had no second receiver last year. They did nothing to change that fact. I don't care whether Stafford's playing or not. I don't think that they can really do anything about us to make it an impressive game. And especially given the fact that Donald's going to be playing against one of our brand new guards, whether it be Daniels from last year or the one from Philly for this year. I'm not sure he's getting through that line. I really love the interior of our line to be able to double team Donald. They're not going to single team him, but able to double team Donald, take him out of the game. Rams are in trouble. Rams are in big trouble. This is the team I hope we play in week one, guys. The Green Bay Packers at home. I hope it's our home opener. There's something about watching a transition that doesn't always work out. And I think that's where the Green Bay Packers are at. Sure, Rodgers was a negative influence on that team when it was all said and done. Just like it was at the end of the Le'Veon and Brown saga when their mental headaches became more than it was worth. But that doesn't mean Jordan Love's any good. Just because Jordan Love's old and he's been in the system doesn't mean he will be talented. The other reason I want this game to be early is that Green Bay's receiving core is pretty dynamic and versed. And I think it would be a good early test to see where our secondary is at. Will Will Porter get beat going over the top? Will we be able to cover the different elements that a very elevated Green Bay receiving core will be bringing to the table? Again, this is the basis of how we're going to win a lot of games. Can we make the quarterback's life hell so he can't get it to the receivers? We're going to find out. But I would love to see that game in September, just for the simple fact that I want to see how this defense looks against a passing game that goes vertical. Because we don't face a whole lot of vertical passing games, and I would like to see it. Following that is the New Orleans Saints. Again, not on our schedule, but interesting to point out. The team we traded with to get Mr. Jones, the New England Patriots, are 17th on Hanzus's list. It's obviously interesting what they're doing over there. New England is basically saying, we're running the ball, we have no speed on offense, and then we're running the ball some more. Their biggest free agent acquisition was a tight end. Yeah, another one. So, they have Juju. That's basically the receiving core. The rest of them walked. They have a quarterback who is not accurate, less accurate than Kenny, and they have a defense that, while has potential and has one of the best players from this year's draft added to it in Gonzalez, they're going to be trying to play games like us, just with a worse offense and probably a worse defense. So you shouldn't lose to a team that's letter grade lower than you, and that's how I view the New England Patriots game. That being said, we lost last year because of special teams and dropped interceptions. I believe Peterson is going to not drop the interception Sutton did, and I'm really hoping we just don't drop a punt this year. That's a wild card you got to deal with in every game, right? The Vikings come in 16th. Now you can see we're starting to get into playoff teams, and we haven't said Steelers yet. So the Vikings are here at 16th. Again, don't play them. Not really a whole lot of concern. He has the Steelers sitting at 15th, which, again, for being the team right outside of the playoffs, that shows improvement over the offseason. And I'm going to already tell you I disagree with at least one of the teams above us, because I don't see the Steelers as the third best team in our division. We go up to who they have at number 14, the New York Giants. I just firmly believe that the Giants are going to take a step backward. I believe in the Plexiglas principle that is taught by Football Outsiders, our very good analytical site. And there are two prime candidates for the Plexiglas principle, and both of them are above the Steelers, the first one being here in the Giants. What the Plexiglas principle says is that if your team makes a giant step forward without a history of being there in the last 3 years, you are incredibly likely to have at least a minor regression, if not major regression, coming back. And I see the New York Giants as a candidate for that. They won so many close games last year. I don't see that happening again. I think when this is all said and done, the Steelers and the Giants might be 10 points apart in the power rankings, despite the fact they're starting ahead of them. No one loves losing a game harder than the San Diego Chargers. They're 13th. We don't play them. If we do play them, it's going to be the playoffs, and I don't care where that game's at, we will win it. Following up is the Seahawks. We do go here. This is the hardest non-division road game the Steelers have. Knowing how much NBC loves going to Seattle and they love the Seahawks, I would not be surprised if this is a middle-of-the-year Sunday night football game. And I would love to see it. Again, vertical passing game. I want to see what our defense can do against it. Geno Smith is basically a statue. I want to see our pass rush against it. And Seattle's Pete Carroll. They know how to make a defense. I think that this is one that on paper, we're not coming in as a favorite in going to Seattle. But I think it's definitely going to be a good game to watch. And I'm excited for it. Not putting the Steelers 100% written off for it. I'm just saying this might be, of the non-division games, my most exciting one looking into it. Going to Seattle on what I believe will probably be a Sunday night football game. When I said before that there were only two candidates for the Plexiglas theory above the Pittsburgh Steelers, I forgot about the Detroit Lions. This team, while they made some strides forward, Detroit's not used to having winning records, and I don't see them staying there. And I get that that's very shallow analysis, and it's not diving in deep. They don't have a defense. They can't cover anyone. And their first round pick was a running back and a middle linebacker. Like, they did not instantly upgrade this team. So, again, I believe the Steelers will finish majorly ahead of them. The Miami Dolphins, they have rated at 10th. And for all the fantasy people out here, I'm not going to dwell on how much I hate Miami, which I do. I almost can guarantee this with every single thing I own. Prior to the end of week 8, Tyreek Hill will have a massive lower body injury that will take him out, possibly for his career. And the entire reason for this is something Tomlin has said many times. You do not pull a boat with a Porsche. And that's what the most arrogant coach in the NFL, which is in the Miami Dolphins, is trying to do with him. They're selling all out to go all in with one of the worst 3 quarterbacks of the veteran quarterbacks in the AFC. And if I was, given the choice, I can have every single draft pick Miami has next year, but I have to take Tua and replace for Kenny. The answer is a hard no. Kenny Pickett is vastly better than Tua. That team is not going anywhere. Remember how they lost 8 of the last 9? That's their direction. They're not the 10th best team in football. Their division rival, Kansas, has it 9th, and again, not going to get full blown into it. They have a great defense, Hall of Fame quarterback. As long as his head's in the game, the Jets are going to be a team we're fighting with for a playoff spot when it's all said and done. Here's the Jaguars at 8th. Again, all of these top 10s, we're not really playing them. Jaguars at 8th, we do play them this year. They are coming here. Jaguars, again, are a plexiglass candidate team. Are they going to regress? Are they going to stay forward? They don't have a whole lot of veteran leadership on their team. What they have is basically the early Sidney Crosby years of the Pens. They went in, they lost that Ottawa series, and then they became a dominant force thereafter. Are the Jaguars going to do that? Possible. History is against them. The Jaguars are a team that no matter what time of the year we play them, you're going to get a hard and physical game. I think that we are very similar in the way that we are built. I would take their offense, but I'm definitely taking our defense. And that's why I think that one being at home is probably going to be like a 2-point spread for the Steelers. Very close game, but very good. At number 7, NFL.com has the Baltimore Ravens ranked 7th in the power rankings. Just no. I mean, this is the offseason of Lamar, the guy they shouldn't have re-signed. I've went into this like crazy. That team is going to implode, probably because of Odell Beckham cannot get an accurate pass thrown to him from Lamar Jackson. Odell Beckham isn't talented enough to get open by himself, and his knee might blow out during training camp. So you add that all together. We're banking on a Rashad Bateman who hasn't really ever played, despite the fact being in the league for 3 or 4 years. And they have a rookie who his first thing on draft day, the first word out of ABC's mouth was, he was used to bad passing coming his way from Boston College. Well, bro, get used to that because you're stuck with it for 5 more years. Number 6, we don't play the Cowboys. Well, they have the Cowboys at 6 overall. The NFL.com does. We do play the Niners. The Niners come here. The last time we played the Niners, I went out to San Francisco to see that game. That was the game after Ben's arm broke. We caused like 5 turnovers in that game. TJ Watt gave us the ball in the 13-yard line after a fumble. It was absolutely fantastic defensive game, but somehow we lost with 5 turnovers. Now, do I think that will happen again? No. If you're playing the Niners, you obviously want to play them early in the year. And the reason is that their quarterback may not be healthy yet, and they're going with Lance, who can't make a read progression to save his life. That's another option where you're basically playing a rookie who doesn't make good decisions, and I think TJ is going to have a flat-out game. Defense is going to get tested, obviously, by the Niners, but I think the Niners are much, much harder in the second half of the year, and I would love to play them early on. I wouldn't mind them being a week 1 game either. I think that would be interesting as well. Can't fight with the Buffalo Bills being 4th, but we don't play them, so I don't need to think about them. The Bengals are 3rd. Again, hard to fight that. I can make an argument for them being number 2. So the Cincinnati Bengals are obviously who we're fighting against. The Cincinnati Bengals are why I believe we're a wild card team. So when we look at what this team has, obviously great passing game. Their true weakness is their running game when it's all said and done. And I know half of you just said, Mixon had that 5-touchdown game. He did nothing else the rest of the year. He's not a reliable between the tackles guy, and they got rid of their backup. So Cincinnati is trying to build themselves like the Indianapolis Colts with pain. We're going to outscore you. We got 3 good receivers, and we now have 2 good pass rushers. That, unfortunately, was a very good draft pick they made, getting the defensive end out of Clemson. And they aren't going away, guys. They've kind of figured things out over there in Cincinnati. The Eagles are second. You're in the Super Bowl. It's hard not to put you as the second best team in football. And then obviously the Kansas City Chiefs being the number 1 team in all power rankings. It's hard to fight that. Why did we go through that exercise? Half of our schedule is dramatically below us in who we're going to play. And when we look at teams that are significantly above us according to the NFL power rankings, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Niners. That's 5 of your 17. We're pretty good against Baltimore. Remember, Lamar Jackson's played against us as a starter 3 times. He's only beat us once. So that's a very good thing. Will he be on the field when we play him? Well, we're going to play him in December because that's what always happens, and probably not. I mean, guy doesn't really have heart. So when that's all said and done, I look at this schedule saying, if we're not a double-digit win team, someone needs to get fired. And someone high up needs to get fired, at least at the OC level, because that's really the only way I don't see this happening. The only other thing that would keep this team back is the lack of progression of Kenny Pickett. But when you look at so many of those defenses we play, Arizona, Houston, they're not bringing anything to the table. And these, while I would like to have them at the end of the year to have like catch-up games when we need them, they're easy landing pads to get your confidence rolling on offense. You know, you put up a solid 28-31 points against Houston. That's a confidence boost that can take you into the next year, into the rest of the year. So, as always, when I look to say, when would I want our bye week? The week after Baltimore. I say that every year, and I stand by it again. You can make an argument for the week after Tennessee because Henry's going to wear you down. But that's how I look at the season and the schedule. So I went a little bit longer than normal, guys, but I wanted to get ahead of it before it comes out on Thursday night so you can see where the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate is at looking at this season. I do believe minimum double digits. We're going to be in a playoff hunt. I think that we're probably, if I had to look across the whole league, we're going to be right there with the second place in the East. And, well, the Chargers love blowing it, but probably with them and the Jacksonville tier. I think that those are legitimate 4 teams that are going to be fighting for the 3 wild card spots. I don't think a single division is putting in 2 wild card teams this year. So who do we got to beat? We got to beat Jacksonville, we got to beat Tennessee, we got to beat Baltimore, and we got to beat all the ones we're better than. You do that, you're in the playoffs. Don't lose to the Slappies. So when it's all said and done, do I think that we have the talent to do it? Absolutely. I think the defense can do it by themselves about 7 of those games. I mean, we're playing some really bad offenses this year. So can Kenny step up? Can Najee be healthy the entire season? And does Watt play the whole year? Those are the 3 biggest question marks. We're in the time of happiness and optimism. So we look at it. But again, I think this is going to be a great year, Steelers. I love how this schedule looks. I love the fact that some of the worst team or the hardest teams are who come here and we go to the worst ones, particularly with the AFC South. And I think this is going to be a very exciting time. So here we go, Steelers. Here we go.